topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
What's working on purpose anyway? Each week, we ponder the answer to this question. People ache for meaning and purpose at work, to contribute their talents passionately and know their lives really matter. They crave being part of an organization that inspires them and helps them grow into realizing their highest potential. Business can be such a force for good in the world, elevating humanity. In our program, we provide guidance and inspiration to help usher in this world we all want, working on purpose. Now, here's your host, Dr. Elise Cortez.
Welcome back to the Working on Purpose program. Thanks for tuning in again this week. I am your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, and I have been hosting this program since February of 2015, and I love it. So happy to have you here. If we have not met yet and you don't know me, I'm a management consultant, an organizational logotherapist, speaker, and author. My team and I at Elise Cortez and Associates help companies to enliven and fortify their operations by articulating their purpose and building inspirational leaders and cultures activated by meaning and purpose to turn those companies from a flatline EKG to a vibrant destination workplace. There, people are intrinsically motivated to perform at their best, grow into their fuller potential, and are committed to stay and dynamically deliver on the company's mission. You can learn more about us and how we can work together at elisecortez.com. Now, getting into today's program, with us is Sandeep Nath, who is first an internal wellness coach. He specializes in helping professionals, senior executives, and business owners achieve optimal health, happiness, and harmony through the transformative principles of renewalism and 8 dimensions of wellness. He serves as the Chief Wellness Officer for the Wellness Seekers Academy and the virtual broadcaster and author of The Renewal Show, and is out to evangelize the renewalism movement across the globe. We'll be talking today about some of the key ideas he puts forth in his book, Renewal, Your Unexpected Role in Saving the Planet. Sandeep joins us today from Delhi, India. Sandeep, welcome to Working on Purpose.
Thank you so much, Elise. That's an absolute honor and a delight to be on this show. Thanks a lot, and hello, everybody.
Hello. So namaste, vanakkam. I just, as you know, I love your country, and I was there in December of 2014, and we met on LinkedIn. Thank you very much. I think you reached out to me, and then it's been magic ever since. And so, Sandeep, I'm a big believer in what you're doing in the world. I want to first showcase this beautiful book that you wrote. Of course, as you saw, I read it cover to cover, as I am prone to do, because I love learning from my guests. So let's first talk a little bit about where this book came from. Why did you write this book? And then we're going to get into actually how it came to be. But why did you write this book?
So I'll have to pull the audience back about 20 years to answer that question, but I'll do it quickly because I used to run a consulting company way back in 1997 is when I started. And about 7-8 years into the operation of the company, I started feeling that me and my clients were part of the problem that we were creating for the world, not a part of the solution. And I say that because I was troubled by the way that we were marketing products and getting the younger generation to live their lifestyles against the biorhythms and eating convenience foods and stuff like that. And that didn't go well with me. So I said, there's got to be something that we must plan for, which changes the consciousness with which we operate as companies. And we're talking about 2003, 2005 at this point in time. I didn't have any answers, but I investigated spiritual gurus who are bound in India, as you're aware. And why I investigated them was because they seem to have answers for practically everything. So that was the beginning of my my journey with Vedic masters, and then that led me to 2010 when I handed my company over to the other directors and headed out to the Himalayas on a one-way plan. And I learned from Tibetan lamas. I lived in monasteries and all of that. Why this is relevant is because from there is what you said just now, Elise, that is where I learned all about our inner workings, our inner power, how energy is so important in this whole mind-body-spirit equation, and how we always talk about being high on spirits, low on spirits, which means high energy, low energy, but we don't know anything about what to do about setting that right. We have a little pimple, we know what to do. The body we're very connected with. The mind we're somewhat connected with, but energy, spirit, nada. In 2019, I was sitting in Mexico and I suddenly got this channeling of a word called renewal and the renewal of human consciousness. And I started writing 40 days, 240 pages. That's the book. Neatly stacked into 3 sets of habits for self-renewal, symbiotic renewal, and systemic renewal. I have no idea how it got so organized and how it's so deep. I mean, I read the book myself and I say, hey, that was good. So I can't say I'm the author of the book. But I can say that this is a message that came to me just before COVID. And when we got into the lockdowns is when I was kind of editing this book. And I said, man, it starts with mindfulness. It starts with being mindful about your mask, about physical distancing. And then it goes into what the lockdowns brought us, online schooling, which is a systemic renewal, which had already been written about, into telecommuting, which is a systemic renewal, which we have already studied. And now the point is, if we had the time to design these systems over 4 or 5 years, we would have done a damn good job, brought down real estate costs, brought down stress, but everybody is so stressed. And this is because it's been imposed upon us. That was when I said, no, this book has got to be out before we regress into our old habits. And that's how the book came about.
Oh, Sandeep, it's so beautiful. I'm so happy to know you and have you in my life because I already know and can recognize the energy that you washed over into me just by meeting you and reading your book. So let's get into a little bit of the content here that there's so much to celebrate in the book. And obviously we're not going to do it full justice or even what you're doing in the world. We're just going to give people a taste. But first, I think it's really important what you did when you opened the book and you talk about how the coronavirus really helped us realize many really important things. If you could just speak to a few of those things that you notice that were critical awakening agents in that pandemic.
Yeah, let me just talk about a few which all of us have experienced. You see, if you read the preface, and it's available online at renewalism.com, you will see that we have experienced this interdependency. Everybody was suddenly aware that, hey, something happening in one corner of China, a city I've never heard of, is affecting me, is affecting my kids, is affecting the way I live my life. So we are all connected, for good or for bad. It also got us to understand that we don't have to spend our time in the malls. We don't need the cinema houses to feel happy. We can reconnect with, no, we got neighbors, for God's sake. We got family. Really? Well, we can talk to each other. That kind of change started happening. Mm-hmm. And this is anecdotal, but it is true. And it's funny because it's true. Because we started understanding the aspects of our lives which we hadn't given adequate importance to because we were too busy being busy. And right. Suddenly we're sitting at home doing nothing. And we realize, bam, this feels good. Talking to dad feels good. And that's one of the habits, spending time with elders, spending time with the younger generation. There's so much two-way learning to happen there, which started happening. So this was kind of what I thought that what's happened during COVID. We've got to acknowledge that and then stay with it, stay with the mindfulness of those activities. The only way you can stay is when you convert them into habits, where it becomes part of your brain. So that's how it helped.
Okay, so a couple of things. So one of the things that you said when you were helping to recognize, you have a whole long list of the things that the coronavirus helped us realize. The first one that I just want to call out just quickly, as you said, and I agree with this, is that what we learned from the coronavirus is that humans are the real viruses on planet Earth. I think that's worth pointing out.
But yeah, it's true, and that's how it was. Because who is responsible for, the byline of the book is your unexpected role in saving the planet.
That's right.
You're the superhero. So you are responsible for saving the planet because you were also responsible for destroying it. I mean, I'm sure the lions and the octopuses have not done as much as we have. to the planet,
I
and the
agree.
king of the jungle and all of that, So let's face it. Let's face it, and let's take responsibility. And I'm inspired by a quote from Gandhi. He said, "Be the change you want to see in the world."
Yes. Yes.
That's so fundamental to creating a movement around this, at least.
It is. And what I want to really call out and celebrate about what you're doing, Sandeep, is you have an urgency about this. And that is because you've recognized that COVID is a wake-up call, and that what you're out to do here with this global movement is you want to make sure people don't relapse into their old ways before COVID. That's what you're doing. And so, right, I see that you are literally a man on a mission. And I also recognize very clearly that this is being it's not just you on a mission. You are being guided by something that has gotten a hold of you, which is how the whole book came to be. But the urgency is incredibly palpable, and I understand it and feel it too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's do this thing. All right, Sandeep, let's do it. All right. So now I want to, if we can, I have to tell you, Sandeep, I loved reading your book. It was so delightfully written, playful, but the language is just eloquent and elegant and inviting. And let's situate for our listeners and viewers just really how this happened. It's a story about how Guru Pranachandra was being invited to speak to a group. But I want you to tell the backstory of this guru first, and then help us understand just how the book came through this guru, if you would.
So Guru Pranachandra is I would call it an energy form, which possessed might be a strong word, but let me use it anyway.
Possessed is what I got. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So 2019 November, he just made me write those 240 pages, and he identified himself after the family identified itself. So this is, like you said, a family that invites the guru for a discourse, and the reason for that is that the family is able to represent you, the reader, and bring to the surface the thoughts and the apprehensions and the problems of real life, which supposedly somebody sitting in the Himalayas does not have. And the gurus descended from there. So that's what he says. Just, a few days back, he descended from the Himalayas. He'd been there for 12 years. And that's probably inspired from my own gurus. I can't name any single one of them, but a lot of those Tibetan lamas, a lot of these Vedic masters, and even some of the Taoist masters and Zen monks spend a lot of time in the mountains. And they go deep within. And with that inner power, they are powered to change the outer reality, not only for themselves, but for many other people. So when we have these people of inner power emerge and come within us as a society, they're able to direct us. They're able to make us connect with our inner selves and change our outer realities. And that is kind of what's happening through the course of this book, through the initial chapters where the guru starts talking. And then, of course, he gets into habits which are structured the way I told you earlier, into the self, into symbiotic relationships, and into systems. But when he starts talking in a way that is relatable. Mm-hmm. And the reason why, thank you so much for saying that, the reason why it is playful and interesting to read is because it's a narrative. It's all within quotation marks and with emotions and expressions, how people would relate to a message like that. Like a word, WhatsAppopedia, which he develops on the fly. Two little kids in the audience and they talk to each other. Well, that's a cool one. So this was what made the book interesting and playful. But the guru is inspired by my masters and is nobody real, but very real when we look at the spiritual embodiment of wisdom.
Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. And I have to say, I want to come with you to the Himalayas. I want to come with you on all of this spiritual seeking and guiding. I want to also share with you that part of the reason I was so compelled to have you on the program and talk is One, I'm from Oregon, which is already a place that is interested in environmentalism, and I think we're the original tree huggers and granola crunchers. But in 1992, when I lived in Rio de Janeiro, I got to go to the Rio Earth Summit, where nations from all over the world, leaders from all over the world, came to Rio to talk about climate change and environmentalism. And I had never seen that before, and I was so compelled by that, such that at the time I was doing my master's degree, and I then researched the economic, political, and social factors that I saw contributing to the Amazonian deforestation. That was my master's thesis. Now today I'm in the field of people, but I was so compelled by that. So I really think the work that you're doing is so critically important, Sandeep, and I'm thrilled to have you on the program. Before we go into our quick break, did you want to respond to anything I just said there?
Well, it's very interesting that you've done this study and you worked with the Amazonians, because there's one thing I want to bring across to our viewers and listeners, that this climate problem is not a problem solved at the COP level. It's not the COP28 that's going to magically have any solutions. It's not the governments that are going to solve that problem. Right. It's a problem that we are going to solve. If you stop carrying a plastic bag, renewal habit number 11,
yes.
You carry a bag, any kind of bag, not plastic, but any kind of bag, when you go out shopping, you're going to solve the plastic bag problem forever. It's just a little bit of mindfulness. You take your cell phone, just put a bag next to it. And whatever you come back with, because you always come back with something, even if you don't plan a shop, you will have a bag to put it in. You won't need one from the shop.
Yeah, I started doing that, my friend, because of you. So thank you for that. It's now in my car. It's my own little inventory. So let's grab our first break here really quick so our listeners and viewers can reflect on what we've been talking about. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We've been on the air with Sandeep Nath, who is first an internal wellness coach, specializing in helping professionals, senior executives, and business owners achieve optimal health, happiness, and harmony through the transformative principles of renewalism and 8 dimensions of wellness, and is out to evangelize globally the renewalism movement. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us and welcome back to Working on Purpose. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, as I'm also dedicated to helping to create a world where people realize their potential at work and are led by inspirational leaders and help them find and contribute their greatness. And we do business that betters the world. I continue to write my own books. And one of my latest books, which came out in March of 2023, is called The Great Revitalization, How Activating Meaning and Purpose Can Radically Enliven Your Business, which I wrote to help leaders understand today's workforce wants and needs, and then provide 22 best practices to help them realize and address those things. You can learn more about my books at elisecortez.com or get them on Amazon. If you're just now joining the program, my guest today is Sandeep Nath, who is first an internal wellness coach specializing in helping professionals, senior executives, and business owners achieve optimal health, happiness, and harmony through the transformative principles of renewalism and 8 dimensions of wellness. He is also the author of Renewal, Your Unexpected Role in Saving the Planet, and is out to evangelize the renewalism movement across the globe. Amazing work that you are doing, my friend. It's so beautiful. Okay, so now let's introduce this concept that you created in your book. It's actually very simple, but there's so much depth and breadth around it as well. And it's this whole notion of, around new. So N for nature, E for empowerment, W for wealth. But then you really talk about the interdependence, and then there's the mind, body, mind, emotion, symbiotic as well. So could you just kind of help us understand the way the model was built?
Wow. So at least like you said, I work with senior management people, and I work on the internal well-being, which comes from an alignment of three things. There's a trinity in everything, and that is the body, the mind, and the spirit. So being in cognizance of all three to an equal extent, and being in cognizance of the alignment all three have, is something that can actually solve all the problems. It's a panacea where it comes to living a stress-free, joyful life. Why is that so? Because the problem right now is that we are living in a sort of spire pyramid, where the top of this spire is the energy part. The connection with it is so little. In the middle is the mind. We're little connected, but the body is the one that's huge, and it's like what we're obsessed about all the time. And if we can change this into something which is equally proportioned, which is how it was in ancient times, and all this renewal is about bringing in the ancient Oriental wisdom in the design of our modern lifestyle, and the way we run our businesses. So when we have a greater focus of on the energy and on the mind, and that comes from training the mind and exploring and connecting with the spirit, which is not relegated to spirituality, which is not religious, which has nothing sectarian about it. It is like we use it in English normally. It's like you are in high spirits, you are a free spirit, you're feeling out of spirits. That's your energy speaking.
Yes.
And being able to harness that is very important. So this trinity is where the NEW also comes from, because your oneness with nature, your oneness with empowering community, people, and your oneness with abundance, which is wealth, which is not money. The notion of money is crazy. Money is just scraps of paper that we invented to prevent us from killing each other over food. Money is wealth, which could be in the form of services that people do, in the form of attitudes that people have. You could have an attitude of giving, which a lot of people I've seen across the world have, even when they don't have enough. On a train, they just might open a lunchbox and share whatever little they've got, because it's lunchtime and they find that you don't have anything. So it's that tendency to feel that, yes, I have everything I need and more, and I can give. And when you're operating from that kind of a mindset, you're operating at a very high level of spirituality, if I may use the word. So the body, mind, spirit maps onto nature, empowerment, and wealth. And there are a lot of facets to this. So I think if we just stick to this one, we're going to spend a lot of time on it. But it's important to understand that within everything is this trinity. And understanding the trinity is understanding how we can align better, how we can sync ourselves up for being at peak performance.
So delicious. Okay, so a few of the things, like I said, I pulled out things that I thought were important for our listeners and viewers, and what I know that I'm feeding them over time. So one of the other things I wanted you to delve into, Sandeep, is you talk about 3 E's of leadership and 5 levels of purpose, and I found that incredibly compelling. So if you could talk about these first, the 3 E's of leadership, and then we'll get into the purpose part, please.
All right. So leadership is this aspect of empowerment. And, the reason why you are able to pass on the power that you have and to get people to feel that they can do what you do, they don't have to wait for you, so to say, is because of these 3 E's. And the E's are edifying, energizing, and empowering. So what's edifying? Edifying is where you are speaking well of the project, the people involved. You're allowing only those positive energies to enter that space. And in the US, almost 50 something years ago, more than 50, actually 55 or 54 years ago, when we sent the man on the moon. That's what NASA and JFK did to each other.
Mm-hmm.
NASA relied on JFK, and JFK verified NASA.
Yeah.
And we had a man on the moon, for God's sake. We've not had one thereafter.
Right.
You can do unbelievable things when you can just get into this mode of not bickering over things and not cutting each other down, but edifying and passing the baton on. That's leadership, passing the baton. And then when it comes to energizing, well, that is the core of moving the spirit across. So, you can't do things yourself. It has to be collaborative. And a leader, the faster he understands that, the more effective he or she becomes. So the way you energize is by getting people to understand why they do what they do. What's the purpose? And when we're building organizations, we are the people, the founding team, who sets together some purpose why we have this organization. But as more people come in, this purpose tends to get lost or diluted because it's not in the culture to keep it at the forefront.
Right.
You want to keep it at the forefront. And you want to have mechanisms for evaluating where it is. So evaluating at an individual level as well as an organizational level, of course, that becomes something that working on purpose is all about, and a full-fledged consulting assignment over months because there is assessments to be done and stuff. But at an individual level, these 5 levels of purpose help a lot. What happens is there are 5 P's, and we operate at 1 or 2 of those P's at any given point in time. Now, I'm going to explain those P's to you, but I'm going to request you, if you're writing them down, to also write down in the last 6 months, which of these P's you predominantly have been operating from. And then you can do that for the 6 months before that and the 6 months before that, because you will see how you're trending your purpose and whether you're actually doing something that's bringing you to level 5 purpose or not. So most of us start out in our career with our conditionings from school and parents and society to perform,
right.
To do something. And that's
First
what
P, perform.
I call the first P is perform. It's like you're busy because you've got to be busy, because you've got to be doing something, you're performing something, you've got a job, you've got a business, you've got something that you've started, and you've got some goals and you have to perform towards those goals. And then you sort of very soon get onto a treadmill of that. And I recognized that I was on the treadmill after 15 years of work. I said, wait a minute. I didn't know about these 5 P's at that point in time. But now that I look back to those years, that period of my life, I was just performing very well. I was very successful. I was running a consulting company, and I had a lot of people working for me, and all outward trappings of success and everything. But ultimately, it was just performing. And a little bit of the second level, the second P, which is proving. I was proving that I could make a difference to my clients. And somewhere, that's what I told you right at the beginning, somewhere I discovered that together we are not making the right kind of difference. So that's proving. And maybe about, I don't have data to back this, but you can make a guess as well as I can. Maybe about 80% people are just performing in their lives. And about 10% people are proving something as well, and performing essentially to prove, especially people who've got targets, people who are connected with something that has to be achieved, mission mode type of stuff. An even lesser percentage move to the third P, which is passion, P for passion. Working with passion means you are working whether or not that activity is paying you for it. And you could be working on passion on a side project while you're doing something for your bread and butter, performing for bread and butter. But are you? You must check. Because if that passion is there, it will give you energy. It will drive purpose at a higher level and fuel your working better in whatever you're proving or performing. So working with passion is very, very is the key to success, is the thing that gets you there. It's what made Michael Jackson the rock star that he became. And that's the problem. That's the problem. Because when you are passionate about something, you energize people to do that with you. Everybody's gung-ho. We are all rock stars. And you're successful. And then what? Because once you're successful, once you got what you were aiming to get, there is no roadmap for anything else. What else? And that's the fourth level of purpose definition, which is the P called pondering. You got to start pondering deliberately, consciously. What am I doing? How is this changing other people? What am I deliberately doing to make that change? Now, Bill Gates started pondering over that. I would imagine. He may not have used that word, but he probably did that soul searching or whatever, and founded the foundation. And that's what carried him through to the fifth level, which I will come to. But I'll give you more examples. It's not just about business. Gandhi, we were talking about him a while ago. He was a lawyer, very successful in South Africa. He could have been a foreign return, middle class, well-to-do gentry in India. But he was passionate about fighting injustice, even out there in South Africa. And that passion, with the pondering about what is it that I really want to do, brought him to India. He wasn't doing his legal stuff in courts over here. He had moved into making a contribution to the Indian masses, into empowering all of them. Now, what Michael Jackson did not do is get in touch one-on-one with the places where his money was going. He was contributing to charities, but not like Bill Gates, who was in India, who was in Africa, who was on the ground, getting his hands dirty and feeling that energy and that feedback. Like Ashoka, great Emperor Ashoka, who fought so many battles, and the last one he fought, he started pondering. He won. But he said, is this the price at which I win? So many dead bodies around. And if you don't know, Ashoka is the one who, after this was the 2nd century, about 450 years after the Buddha, or more than that, he revived Buddhism and took it all over Southeast Asia. And the reason Buddhism is alive in the world today as a philosophy is because of what Ashoka did. And that is level 5 purpose, where the P for that is prosperity. You're thinking through the lens of prosperity of others. It's not about what you've done with your passion, or by transmitting your passion, but what's going to make a difference. What is going to make people prosperous? Whether it is those struggling Indians, whether it is those villagers without drinking water, whether it is those, the entire society which was bereft of a flat belief system that did not deify anybody. That's what Buddhism was. And brought people to believe that they can be awakened from within themselves. They can do the work, the inner power. They have it. So just 3 examples of people who've moved into.
Yes, just 3 examples. Sandeep, that was incredible and so opening. Again, let's let our listeners, viewers, and consider that, because there was a lot to take in there. That was incredibly beautiful. Let's take our last break here. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We're on the air with Sandeep Nath, who is first an internal wellness coach, specializing in helping professionals, senior executives, and business owners achieve optimal health and happiness and harmony. He's been talking a bit about what he's out to do here with his renewalism movement. After the break, we're going to hear more about a few of those habits that he gets into in the book. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us and welcome back to Working on Purpose. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. As I mentioned in the last break, my latest book has come out, which is The Great Revitalization, How Activating Meaning and Purpose Can Radically Enliven Your Business. What I did to accompany that is I created an organizational assessment that allows you to look at the standards of your actual workplace. You can find it at my website, elisecortez.com, and it's free. It's 3 pages. Go get it, and you'll be able to see how you're doing in your own organization to meet today's workforce needs. If you are now just joining me, my guest is Sandeep Nath, who is a man on a mission to evangelize the renewalism effort around the world. He's also the author of Renewal, Your Unexpected Role in Saving the Planet. Sandeep, what you just last narrated for us before the break is so breathtaking to me. I think that's the promise of your book on an individual level, when you think about what you can do with your one precious life. And I think what you've done there is you have opened something for people that I would venture to guess the vast majority of people never, ever get to the ponder stage. They never even get there. And I want to just commend you and say thank you for that. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. And thank you for developing those assessments so people know where they are.
Well, I'm trying to do my best with you, my friend. I mean, let's lift the world. It needs it, right? So let's talk about a few. So as you mentioned so beautifully at the beginning of the program, you talked about how you organized the book, or I should say you were channeled to organize the book, if you will, around these 3 different buckets of habits. And so there's a whole set of, I think it's 10 habits around self-renewal. So would you just maybe share 1 or 2 of the habits in that chunk that really speak to you?
Right. So it all begins with the self. And like Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. So if you want to see something change, the first thing you've got to have is to be aware, to be mindful about what's happening. And to develop that awareness, you've got to connect your body, mind, and spirit. Just before the break, we were talking about the importance of bringing that connection and alignment into each individual. And if you missed that, please go back. That's important because we're losing that connection as a society. And the purpose of self-renewal is to get us more connected with stuff that connects us with energy, that makes us more energized. So my promise to you is you follow those 10 habits, and whether it's 10 a.m. or 10 p.m., you will be at the same level of energy always. It's written in a manner that it starts with the first habit of when you wake up, what do you do? And the last, when you sleep, what do you do? And what do you do during the day? And a lot of anecdotal references because it's a talk by Guru Pran Chandra. So it's kind of interesting over there. But just to pick up a couple of habits that I would think would be new for you. One might be the habit of doing Qigong. Because Qigong is something that goes back 4,000-5,000 years. And it's the word is Qi, Qi, meaning life force energy, and Gung, meaning to work with. So when you are working directly with energy, using the principles that are 5,000 years old, you're bringing the Tao, the way, the nature, straight into you on a daily basis. Now, this is way more powerful than yoga or going to the gym, and it has the same or better effects because it aligns not just the body and the mind, but also the spirit. So get all of a Qigong master, organize a business Qigong workshop in your organization, but get people and teams in the habit of working with energy. And that will keep that energy with them. Another thing that comes to mind is the power of visualization. Because, I mean, everybody's written about this. Shakti Gawain has written about it. Tony Robbins talks about it all the time. But the point is, how do you do it? What do you do? And habit is something that is doable. That is connecting your conscious, subconscious, and unconscious minds in a way that it answers all those three questions. And that's where habit formation is so permanent, because you get into alignment with that body, mind, and spirit of conscious, subconscious, and unconscious minds. Deep subject, won't get into that. But how do you visualize? What do you visualize? And how do you use that visualization to change your outer reality? Because you align your inner power, you change your outer reality. And then you transmit that vision to others, and that makes you a leader, that helps you empower people, and blah, blah, blah. Move on from there.
Gorgeous and impossible to resist. Okay, so that was on the self-renewal set of habits. Now, if I can, and let me indulge, if you will, I'd like to just read a passage from your book. One, it'll help the readers and listeners really understand just how beautiful your book is written, and then if you can comment on it. This is from the symbiotic renewal set of habits. So you say, and I quote, "But my point here is that this itself is proof that your energy field interacts with and gets affected by the energy around you. And it is this interaction that creates the interdependence we have with all other things. Energetic attraction and repulsion determine what we like or don't like, what we buy or don't buy, who we interact with or don't interact with. And therefore, when we wish to exercise our higher purpose, when we wish to empower our near or dear or organizational teams or with our prosperity, we must remember that the power to prosper comes from our internal energy. This internal energy is the foundation of the habits of self-renewal." That builds on what you were just saying. And I think that interdependence is what I think probably many people are missing to really understand. So if you could speak a little bit to this, some of the habits and the symbiotic renewal part of the book.
Right. So I started this conversation when you asked me about COVID with interdependence, for the same reason that people don't understand, and COVID helped to make them understand that everything depends on everything else. A little incident out there in Wuhan changed the world. Now, likewise, we think that we were talking about plastics a little while back. We think that the whole problem of the climate, of garbage, of landfills, is for the government to solve, is for the authorities to solve. But my belief is that if we can renew our consciousness and operate from a slightly higher level of self-consciousness about the symbiotic relationship that we are very much part of, and we carry a bag to the market or to wherever we go out, we are saving two bags. The one that the shopkeeper would have given us otherwise, and the one that we would have forgotten the next time. So all those bags go into the garbage, and all that garbage goes into the landfills or goes into the ocean. And that's the reason why the ocean is so polluted. Just our bag. Yeah. So things like that, if you reflect on them, and it doesn't take sitting on a cushion for 20 minutes to reflect on that. It just takes, getting cognizant of that to reflect that, why am I doing that? I can carry a bag. I can, for example, declutter my space. We read about it all the time. It's there in WhatsApp. It's there on Facebook. How do you minimalize your life? How do you clean your cupboards? And when your cupboard is clean, it means your mind is clean. Your desk reflects the state of mind. But still, we have all this garbage around. And 80% of the garbage, if you count the number of things on your desk today, you might be surprised that 8 out of 10 of those things you do not use on a daily basis, maybe not even on a weekly basis. So what are they doing there? What, if you extrapolate that, what are they doing in your life? You bought them once for some reason, an impulse, but somebody else could use them. Upcycle that thing because you don't need it. COVID again taught us that we don't need so much. We can do without new clothes for 3 years. Maybe at least 3 months when the lockdowns were really severe. But frankly, I haven't had the need to buy clothes for 3 years. And it hasn't affected me very much. So stuff like that is not only good for the environment, but also good for your own mental makeup and for your own decluttering and minimalizing your life and everything that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So deal with that and make the world a better place.
We're coming close to the end here, but I really want to also hit the last section of habits, and that's really the systemic one. And I have to be able to situate this. When you think systemically, this is really important. And this is powerful what you said here. And I quote what you say. You say, corporations kill potential. My plea to you, therefore, is to allow your kids to connect with their inner power while they still have it active, unclouded, and unobscured. And in that process, maybe even rediscover it yourself. Learn more to teach more. Get your kids to open their minds, sharpen their axe. And as they cut better, while their so-called competition goes blunt, allow them to explore and express what they have driven by, and encourage them to on that plan. Your kids are tomorrow's global citizens, and because you might need social proof, so then you talk about people that were homeschooled. So what you're suggesting in this part here, which is really interesting to me, Sandeep, is a little bit of homeschooling here to get off that path, of the programming. And then you go on to list several people who are products of being homeschooled. But I think it's important if you could just say a bit about the importance of the systemic set of habits here.
Right. So let's start with that one, because the habit is just to explore homeschooling for a while, for a year. Take your kids off for a year and see how that goes. What is the kind of pressure that happens? And that could have happened in the COVID year as well. But it can happen this year, it can happen next year. And what you will probably understand if you read the book and those case studies, and you read the biographies of those people on Wikipedia, we're talking about people like Serena Williams, Vanessa Williams, people who, those are contemporaries, Justin Bieber, but people who've done landmark work in this world, who've made huge changes. Andrew Carnegie, for instance, Isaac Newton. Now, what is the root of this? What goes behind this? What goes behind this is that the schooling system and the way that the education is designed is making us conform. And, I'm not sure I can quote Earl Nightingale over here, but he said something very powerful about how conformity is practically the exact opposite of success. Because conformity keeps us where we are, and success requires us to break the mold. And all these people who've been homeschooled have broken the mold because they didn't have any shackles to tell them how it is to be done the way it's always done. Now, when it's that way, that you or do it the way it's always done, you're very good for working in a company and following the process laid out for you. But that's not what changes the level of consciousness with which the planet operates.
Yes.
That's what makes a good BPO operator. Well, way back in 2005, when this started bothering me, it was those BPO operators who were India's best kids, who were lured into the highest salaries to do clerical jobs. And they were capable of a lot more. But they were coming out of these schools, which they had paid for, and they had to sort of pay back their parents or get that money back. And this was the best job. And so much of human potential was going down the drain. That's where this comes from. Now, another one that relates to systemic renewal is something which the first habit in this section is about your own power to make systemic change. We undervalue ourselves. We under-empower ourselves. And
we've got about 30 seconds, by the way, on that one. So 30 seconds, yes.
So I just recommend that movie, oh God, now I don't have the name of the movie. But this guy is in prison and he writes every day to the authorities to get a library in the prison, and he succeeds. Now, if a prisoner can write every day and get the authorities to change, what can you do?
Is that Shawshank Redemption?
Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. You're so welcome. We do this together. Sandeep, we are out of time, and I can tell you, you are such a delight and so important in the world. I'm so grateful to be connected with you, and I am with you, my friend. I'm one of your soldiers. It's probably not the right word, but I'm one of your followers. How's that?
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being on Working on Purpose and sharing this. It's so important. Listeners and viewers, if you want to learn more about Sandeep Nath, the work he is doing to nurture an internal well-being and his renewalist movement, you can start by visiting his website, which is sandeepnath.com. Let me spell that for you. It's SANDEEPNATH.com, sandeepnath.com. We'll see you next week for another nourishing and elevating conversation here on Working in Purpose. And remember, work is an essential part of our lives, ultimately the way we spend our lives, and can be one of the best adventures and means of realizing our potential and making the impact we crave. So let's work on purpose. And let's move to those higher levels of purpose, those 5 that Sandeep taught us about today. Thanks, and see you next week.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's program. Be sure to tune into Working on Purpose, featuring your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, each week on W4CY. Together, we'll create a world where business operates conscientiously, leadership inspires impassioned performance, and employees are fulfilled in work that provides the meaning and purpose they crave. See you there. Let's work on purpose.